Lockdown protocols initiated. Repeat, lockdown protocols initiated. All delegates to secure positions. This is not a drill. Ambassador Korvax's primary heart stopped when security burst into the conference hall. His cubs. Where were his cubs? "Sir, we have a code violet," the security chief announced, mandibles clicking with stress. "Food theft from a human delegate. The perpetrators have been contained." The room erupted. 17 species representatives began shouting simultaneously, their translators creating a cacophony of panic. Food theft from a human during treaty negotiations. The Galactic Council had explicit protocols for this. Harsh, immediate, and designed to prevent interspecies war. "Which human?" Korvax heard himself ask, though his blood had turned cold. "The cafeteria manager, Olivia Smith." Through the conference room's viewport, Korvax could see his 2 cubs, barely 30 cycles old, sitting in the security office, his sandwich remnants still clutched in their small claws. His career, his family's honor, possibly their lives, destroyed over lunch. Standard protocol requires immediate disciplinary action. Zara, the Threen cultural liaison, announced grimly. Confiscation of resources, public apology, and given the victim species. She paused, checking her datapad. Humans are classified as apex persistence predators. Territorial, highly aggressive when possessions are violated. We must assume retaliatory intent. "Where is the human now?" someone demanded. "In the cafeteria, continuing her shift." "She's what?" 4 diplomats spoke at once. "She refused to leave her station. Security offered escort to safe quarters, but she said..." The security chief consulted his notes, confusion evident. "She said, and I quote, 'It's really not that big a deal, guys.'" The room went silent. Then chaos. "Not a big deal? Her food was stolen." "Check her bio readings. Is she in shock?" "Humans don't go into shock from property theft," someone argued. "They go into rage." Korvax watched through the viewport as his mate arrived at security, her crest flattened in devastation. Their cubs looked terrified, as they should be. They'd committed an act that could spark an interspecies incident, compromise 50 years of diplomatic groundwork, and potentially, if human behavior patterns held true, result in violent retaliation. "We need crisis negotiators," Zara said urgently. "Full diplomatic immunity invoked. Compensation packages prepared. If the human demands traditional justice." "Has anyone asked the human what she wants?" The question came from Jotaro, a junior diplomat. "Asked her?" Zara's scales rippled with disbelief. "We can't approach her until we understand her threat assessment. Human body language is notoriously difficult to read, and her calmness could indicate anything from shock to predatory patience. We have cubs to protect." "My cubs," Korvax said quietly. Staring at his children through the glass, they looked so small, so scared. Zara's voice softened. "I know, but humans are unpredictable, especially when their resources are violated. Protocol exists for a reason." Through the viewport, Olivia Smith walked past security, carrying a tray of food. She glanced at the cubs, smiled slightly, and continued to the cafeteria. She'd smiled. No one in the conference room knew what that meant, and that terrified them more than anything. The emergency diplomatic session had been running for 20 minutes when Zara pulled up the security footage. "Perhaps understanding the severity of the violation will help us formulate an appropriate response," she said, her voice strained. The footage showed 2 small figures, Korvax's cubs, Rix and Tira, approaching the cafeteria counter. They moved with the exaggerated stealth of children who thought they were being clever, freezing dramatically behind chairs, then scampering forward when they believed no one was watching. Despite the tension, someone in the room made a noise that might have been a suppressed laugh. The cubs reached Olivia's lunch bag, visible on a side counter. Rix stood watch, poorly, while Tyra wrestled with the zipper. When it finally opened, both cubs dove in simultaneously, getting stuck halfway, their small tails wagging with excitement as they pulled out the sandwich. "Freeze there," Zara commanded. The image paused on both cubs, sandwich held between them like a trophy, their faces covered in what appeared to be mustard, looking absolutely delighted with themselves. Korvax put his face in his hands, his children, his foolish, hungry, ridiculous children. "The human witnessed this?" someone asked. "No. She was in the main kitchen." They had approximately 45 seconds of undetected activity before Zara fast-forwarded. The cubs, hearing footsteps, had attempted to hide under the counter. One tail remained visible, wagging, before they were discovered by another staff member. "We need to approach the human with a formal compensation package," Jotaro suggested. "Full restitution, public apology from the cubs' family." "Already attempted," the security chief interrupted. The human said, quote, "It's fine, really." Every translator in the room started flashing warning lights simultaneously. "It's fine" registers as a severe threat indicator in Threen communication, Zara said urgently. In Vexian, it's a prelude to violence. In Korvaxian, it means... "I know what it means in my own language," Korvax snapped. "It means someone is about to lose their standing in the pack." He stood abruptly. "Where is the human now? I will offer formal apology myself, family honor, whatever she requires." "Sir, we strongly advise against direct contact until..." But Korvax was already moving. He found Olivia Smith in the cafeteria kitchen, preparing what appeared to be dozens of identical meals with efficient, practiced movements. She looked up when he entered, and he immediately lowered his crest in the most submissive gesture his species possessed. "Mr. Smith, I am Ambassador Korvax. Those cubs the thieves, they are mine. My children. I take full responsibility. Whatever compensation you require, whatever justice you demand, I will..." "Oh." Olivia's face changed. He couldn't read the expression. "You're their dad. Are they okay? They looked pretty scared when security grabbed them." Korvax straightened slightly, confused. "Scared? They stole from you." "Yeah, I know. Kids get into everything." She went back to her meal prep. "Is this about replacing the sandwich? Because honestly, it was just turkey and cheese. I've got more in the fridge." "You're..." Korvax struggled to process this. "You're not angry?" "Angry? At a couple of kids sneaking snacks?" She laughed, actually laughed. "Do you know how many times my own kids have raided my lunch bag? It's basically a childhood rite of passage." Zara's voice crackled through Korvax's communicator. "Ambassador, her biometric readings are spiking. Elevated heart rate, increased vocal volume, facial muscular contractions indicating..." "She's laughing," Korvax said slowly. "Laughter can be a stress response in humans. A precursor to..." Korvax muted his communicator. "Your children," Olivia continued. "They must have been really hungry to go through all that trouble. Are they eating enough? I notice they're pretty small." Yes, no. They're in their growth phase. Always hungry. But that doesn't excuse..." "Of course it doesn't excuse it. They need to learn to ask first." She paused in her work. Are they still in the security office? Can I talk to them? In the conference room, monitoring the conversation, 17 diplomats leaned forward simultaneously. She wants to speak with the Cubs, someone whispered. Directly. That violates Protocol 7, subsection. Did she just express concern about whether they're eating enough? Zara was frantically analyzing data. This doesn't match any known human behavioral pattern for resource theft. She should be demanding compensation, establishing dominance, or something. On the security feed, the Cubs had somehow escaped containment and were now wedged in the ventilation system, their terrified whispers carrying through the facility's audio sensors. We're in so much trouble, Tyra. I told you we shouldn't take the sandwich, but it smelled so good. Olivia's voice came through Korvax's communicator. Can someone please tell those babies they're not in trouble? They sound terrified. Zara's translator sparked. Babies? She called them babies? No one had an answer. Absolutely not. Zara's voice was firm through the conference room speakers. Direct contact between the victim and the perpetrators violates 47 separate diplomatic protocols. Olivia, still visible on the security feed in the cafeteria, looked directly at the camera with an expression that every species in the room interpreted differently, and none correctly. I'm sorry, what? I just want to talk to them. They're kids. Miss Smith, Zara said carefully, we understand human territorial instincts are strong. The Cubs violated your space, your resources. But direct confrontation could escalate the situation. For everyone's safety. Safety? They're like, what, 50 pounds each? Olivia tilted her head. What exactly do you think I'm going to do to them? The question hung in the air, like a gravitational anomaly. We don't know, Jotaro admitted quietly. That's the problem. Korvax, still in the cafeteria with Olivia, watched her face cycle through several expressions. He'd studied human facial mechanics, required training for anyone working with them. But the combination of movements didn't match any documented response pattern. Let me get this straight, Olivia said slowly. You think I'm dangerous to two small children because they took my sandwich? You're an apex predator species, Zara explained, her voice taking on the careful tone usually reserved for explaining explosive devices. Your kind historically responded to resource theft with extreme territorial aggression. We have documentation of human wars fought over far less. Wars? Over a sandwich? Olivia's voice pitched higher. Have you actually met humans before? 17 specialists have been consulted on human behavioral patterns, Zara replied. The data is wrong. Olivia set down her knife. Several diplomats flinched and held up her phone. Look, these are my kids, Emma, James, and Sophie. This one, she swiped to a photo, is Emma at age 6, after she stole an entire cake I'd made for a party. See her face? Covered in frosting. Was I angry? Sure. Did I sit her down and explain why that wasn't okay? Yes. Did I start a war about it? The conference room was silent. You have offspring, Korvax said carefully. 3 of them. Yeah, and let me tell you, they've gotten into everything. Lunch bags, snack cabinets, the emergency chocolate I hide in my sock drawer. Kids are basically adorable little thieves with no impulse control. She smiled, that expression again, and Korvax felt something in his understanding of humans fundamentally shift. She's not seeing them as protocol violators, he said into his communicator. She's seeing them as children. That's not possible, Zara replied. They're not her species. Human pack bonding has limits. The research clearly states. Has your research ever involved humans interacting with children? Olivia interrupted. Any children? Pause. The studies focused primarily on human-adult interactions in professional settings, Zara admitted. Well, there's your problem. Olivia crossed her arms. Look, I don't know what kind of propaganda you've been reading about humans, but I'm a cafeteria manager and a mom. Those cubs aren't evil criminals. They're hungry kids who made a bad choice. I just want to talk to them, explain why they should ask next time, and maybe figure out why they were hungry enough to risk stealing in the first place. In the ventilation system, the cubs' whispers grew more desperate. They're going to send us away. Papa's career is ruined because we were stupid. I'm so scared, Rix. Olivia's expression changed immediately. Oh, those poor babies. Someone get them out of there right now. Poor babies? A Threen diplomat looked at Zara. She's expressing protective concern? This contradicts every human behavioral model we have, someone else said. Does it? Jotaro spoke up. Or have our models been wrong? We've been treating humans like unpredictable predators when we should have been asking about their family structures, their child-rearing practices, their... This is an emergency council, Zara interrupted. We need to vote. Do we allow direct contact between the human and the cubs? If we refuse, she'll likely escalate, Korvax said quietly. I've been standing next to her for 10 minutes. She's not aggressive. She's frustrated that we won't let her do what she clearly sees as the obvious solution. Which is what exactly? Parenting, Olivia said flatly. The word you're looking for is parenting. 20 minutes later, the cubs were extracted from the ventilation system, a process that required 3 security officers and resulted in both cubs covered in dust, clinging to each other, their eyes wide with terror. They were brought to the main conference room, where every species representative had assembled. Korvax and his mate stood to one side, their crests low with shame and worry. Security positioned themselves strategically around the room, and Olivia Smith walked in, carrying a tray with 2 sandwiches, a juice box, and some cookies. Hi there, she said gently, and every adult in the room tensed. The cubs pressed closer together, trembling. Olivia looked around at the assembled crowd, at the security personnel, at the formal setup of what was clearly meant to be some kind of tribunal. Are you all seriously doing this right now? She shook her head. Everybody out, except the parents. This is a family conversation, not a galactic incident. Miss Smith, protocol requires out. Olivia's voice didn't rise, but something in it made 17 species instinctively recognize parental authority. They filed out, confused and more uncertain than ever about human behavior patterns. Zara stopped at the door. We'll be monitoring from outside, for safety. You do that, Olivia said, already setting the tray down and, to everyone's horror, sitting on the floor at the cub's eye level. Now then, she said softly, let's talk about what happened, and why you two look like you haven't had a decent meal in days. Through the observation window, Zara and 16 other diplomats watched something that would fundamentally rewrite xenoanthropology textbooks for the next century. Olivia sat cross-legged on the floor, a position that, by Korvaxian standards, indicated submission, but somehow on the human just looked comfortable. The cubs, still pressed against each other, stared at her with wide, uncertain eyes. So, Olivia said, pushing the tray closer to them, you guys must have been really hungry, huh? Silence. Then Tyra's stomach growled loudly. Despite their fear, despite everything, both cubs looked mortified. Olivia laughed, that sound again, warm and genuine. I'll take that as a yes. She gestured to the sandwiches. Go ahead, eat. It's allowed? Rix whispered. Of course it's allowed. Food's meant to be eaten, especially by growing kids. She tilted her head. When was the last time you two had a full meal? The cubs looked at each other, then at their parents. Korvax felt his heart sink as he realized he didn't know the answer. The facility provides nutritionally complete meals 3 times per cycle, he said, defending himself more than explaining. Nutritionally complete for who? Olivia asked, not unkindly. Kids in growth phases need way more calories than adults. Like, way more. My son James ate us out of house and home when he was 13. I was making 5 lunches a day just to keep up with him. 5 per day? Korvax's mate Syra spoke for the first time. Growth spurts are no joke. Olivia pulled out her phone, swiped through photos. Look, this is Emma when she was 7. Caught her with her entire hand in the cookie jar, literally. And this one's Sophie, age 9, who figured out how to pick the lock on the snack cabinet. She turned the phone toward the cubs. Tyra leaned forward cautiously, then gasped with delight. She has food on her face? Chocolate, everywhere. She'd eaten an entire box of brownies. Olivia grinned. Was I happy about it? No. Did I understand she was hungry and made a bad choice? Yes. That's what kids do. They make mistakes, and we help them learn. Rix had picked up one of the sandwiches, still hesitant. You're not angry? About the sandwich? Honey, no. I'm a little concerned about why you were hungry enough to steal it, but angry. At you two? Never. But we took your food, Tyra said, her voice small. We violated your territory. We deserve punishment. Olivia's expression shifted, softer, sadder. Oh, sweetie. No? Is that what you've been thinking this whole time? She looked at Korvax and Syra. Is that what the protocols told them to expect? Standard procedure for resource theft, Korvax began. They're 6, Olivia interrupted gently. They're 6-year-olds who are hungry. This isn't a diplomatic incident. This is a parenting moment. Outside, Zara was furiously taking notes. She's completely recontextualized the entire situation, not as a crime, but as a learning opportunity. Human child-rearing practices emphasize education over punishment, Jitaro suggested. But they're not even her species. Inside, the cubs were eating, tentatively at first, then with increasing enthusiasm. Between bites, Olivia asked questions. What do they usually feed you here? Protein supplements, Rick said, calculated for optimal nutrition. Supplements? You're growing kids, not lab experiments. You need real food, variety, snacks between meals. She looked at the parents. How often do they eat? 3 times per cycle, as I said. Not enough. Growing cubs, kids, need to eat every few hours. Small meals, frequent snacks. Their bodies are building bone and muscle. They need fuel. She pulled another container from her bag. Here, this is my backup sandwich. And these cookies, homemade by the way, are for after you finish the real food. Tyra looked at the cookies like they were treasures. Why are you being nice to us? Because you're kids, and you were hungry, and you needed help. Olivia said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. Now, the stealing part, we need to talk about that. What should you have done instead? Not taken your food? Rix offered. Well, yes. But more specifically? The cubs looked confused. Asked, Olivia said gently. You should have asked. Excuse me, we're really hungry. Can we have something to eat? See? Easy. And you know what? I would have made you the best sandwiches you've ever had. Just asked. Tyra sounded amazed by this concept. Just asked. That's what we do when we need help. We ask. Korvax felt something breaking in his chest. Years of diplomatic training, protocol memorization, fear of human unpredictability. All of it crumbling as he watched a human cafeteria manager teach his children something he'd failed to. That asking for help was allowed. Next time you're hungry, Olivia continued, you come find me. Anytime. Morning, afternoon, middle of the night. I don't care. You ask and I'll feed you. Deal? Both cubs nodded, their fear finally gone, replaced with something that looked like wonder. Deal, Tyra whispered. Syra made a sound, half sob, half laugh. You're going to feed our children? Well, yeah, they're growing. They need food. And apparently your facility's nutrition plan is garbage for kids their age. Olivia stood, brushing off her pants. I'll talk to whoever's in charge of meal planning. We'll fix this. Outside, the diplomatic corps was in complete disarray. She's adopted them, someone said. She can't adopt them. They have parents. I don't think she cares about our classification systems. Zara stared at her datapad, watching years of human behavioral research become obsolete in real time. We've been so wrong, she whispered. About all of it, retry. The emergency session reconvened 3 hours later, but the mood had fundamentally shifted. We need to completely restructure our human interaction protocols, Zara announced, her scales rippling with what might have been embarrassment. Our entire framework was based on predator-prey dynamics when we should have been studying human family structures. Agreed, Jotaro said. I propose we create a human cultural consultant position immediately. Someone who can help us understand these parental instincts. I'll do it, Korvax said quietly. Everyone turned to him. I'm already writing a dissertation. Human pack bonding instincts and their application to interspecies relations. After today, I have 17 years of diplomatic experience to reconsider. The treaty negotiations resumed the next day with an entirely new section. Human Protocols, Subsection 7. Children and Caregiving Behaviors. It would become the most cited diplomatic document in Council history. By the end of the week, other species' children had started appearing at the cafeteria during off hours, clutching permission slips from confused parents. Word had spread. The human fed hungry cubs and didn't ask questions. Olivia's response was to requisition a larger food budget and start keeping a box of emergency snacks under her desk. I don't understand how this happened, her co-worker Marcus said, watching a small threen child carefully accept a cookie. You caused an interspecies incident and somehow ended up running an unofficial daycare. Olivia shrugged, pulling out more sandwich supplies. Kids are the same everywhere, I guess. They get hungry, they get scared. They need someone to be patient with them. She started slicing bread with practiced efficiency. Besides, have you seen how cute they are when they say thank you? Totally worth it. The security footage from that day became mandatory viewing for every xenoanthropology student in 3 sectors. Professors would pause at the moment Olivia sat on the floor and ask, what assumption did we make here? And why was it wrong? The answer was always the same. They'd seen humans as predators when they should have seen them as parents. On the second day after the incident, Rix and Tyra waited outside the cafeteria at dawn, clutching something carefully between them. When Olivia arrived, they thrust it forward, a hand-drawn picture showing a human significantly taller than anatomically accurate. standing between two small cubs, all three figures smiling. Above them, in carefully practiced human letters, "Thank you." "Oh, you guys," Olivia said softly, taking the picture. "This is going right on my office wall." "Next to your own cubs?" Tyra asked hopefully. "Right next to them." Behind them, Zara was recording everything, her datapad already containing 300 new pages of human behavioral data. Across the facility, 17 species were rewriting their human interaction guidelines. The Galactic diplomatic framework was undergoing its largest revision in 4 centuries. And Olivia Smith, completely oblivious to the cosmic implications of her actions, hung the picture on her wall with care, hummed something tuneless, and returned to making sandwiches for the growing crowd of children who'd learned the most important lesson about humans. If you're hungry, just ask. They'll always feed you. The incident would later be known as the Sandwich Protocols, and every diplomat in the sector would study it. But Korvax, watching his cubs laugh at Olivia's terrible jokes while eating her homemade cookies, knew the real lesson was simpler. Humans didn't see species classifications or diplomatic hierarchies. They just saw children who needed help. And that, more than any treaty or protocol, changed everything.